as we turn now to one of the people who says he was tortured. We're joined by Darrell Cannon. He says police tortured him in 1983 and forced him to confess to a murder he didn't commit. He spent more than 2 decades in prison. But after a hearing on his tortured confession, prosecutors dismissed his case in 2004. Now he's suing the city of Chicago for wrongful conviction. We're also joined by Flint Taylor, an attorney who represents a number of the torture victims. But let's go to Darrell Cannon. Darrell, tell us what happened to you. Talk about how you were picked up and what you admitted to, and what happened to you in Burge's custody.
It was on November the 2nd, 1983, between the hours of 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. A group of all-white detectives invaded my apartment where I stayed with my common-law wife and my son. They kicked open the door, they cursed her out, they searched for me, they finally found me, they gave me my clothes, they ransacked the entire apartment, found nothing. They took me downstairs, placed me on my knees in front of the vestibule until the rest of the detectives had searched other apartments. Then they came down, put me in the car, they drove around looking for another guy that they say was complicit in this particular crime. After they didn't find him, they took me to the police station. I stayed there for a short period of time. They took me out of the police station. They took me to a restaurant that caters to truckers and police officers. They left me double handcuffed in the backseat of a detective car while they went in and had breakfast. They came out from breakfast. They took me to a remote area where they drove through a pipe, came out on the opposite end of an isolated area where there was nothing but water and railroad tracks around. They got me out the backseat of the car, and they proceeded to ask me some more questions about a homicide that had took place. I told them I had no knowledge about the homicide. They then did a mock hanging where I'm cuffed behind my back, and one of the detectives would get on the bumper of the detective car. The other 2 detectives would lift me up to him, and he would grab my handcuffs from behind. They would let me go. That would cause my arms to go up backwards, almost wrenching the inside of my shoulders. That method went on for I don't know how long, but eventually it wasn't successful because of the fact that there was a fine mist rain out that morning, and Jon Burge, which is the tallest detective, he kept slipping off the back of the bumper. They then switched to a second torture treatment, which was the shotgun, where they got their shotgun, pump shotgun out the back seat, out the trunk of the car, and Peter Dignit, which is another one of the detectives, the most vicious one out of all of them. He proceeds to ask me some more questions about the murder and to tell me what they knew had already occurred and wanted me to fill in the gaps. I refused to do so. He took a shotgun shell, showed it to me. Now his exact words were, "Listen, nigga," and that's when he turned his back to me. I heard a clicking sound, which seems like it was the shell being placed in the chamber. He turned back around to face me. I no longer seen a shotgun shell. So they continued to ask me questions. I refused to answer. One of them said, "Go ahead, blow that nigga's head off." And that's when Peter Dignit forced the shotgun in my mouth. And he said, "You're not gonna tell me I want to hear? You're not gonna tell me?" I said, "No." And that's when he pulled the trigger. They did this mock execution 3 times. The 3rd time they did it, when I heard that trigger pull, in my mind, I thought he was blowing the back of my head off because the hair on the back of my head stood straight up when I heard that click. By them not being successful in getting what they wanted out of me, they did a 3rd treatment, which was they put me in the back seat of a detective car. They unhandcuffed my cuffs from behind, put them in front. Jon Burge had a gun to my head and told me, "Don't move," when they redid the handcuffs. They put me sideways in the back seat of a detective car and made me lay down across the seat. They pulled my pants and my shorts down, and that's when Burge took an electric caliper, turned it on, and proceeded to shock me on my testicles. They did this what seems like forever with me, but it wasn't that long. At one point, I was able to kick the caliper out of the detective's hands, and that knocked the batteries out. He got the batteries, put them back in. One of them tried to take his feet and put it on top of one of my feet. The other one did the same thing to stop me from kicking. Then this is when they started using the electric caliper on me again, while telling me that they knew that I wasn't the one they wanted, but I had the information that could lead them to the other person that they wanted. They continued to do this until finally I agreed to tell them anything they wanted to hear. Anything. It didn't matter to me. You know, if they said, "Did your mother do it?" Yes, yes, yes. Because the diabolical treatment that I received was such that I had never in my life experienced anything like this. I didn't even know anything like this here existed in the United States. You know, it wasn't until years later that I heard about torture in Chile and other places. This is after I was in the penitentiary. And it was amazing to me that these things had previously happened to me here in the United States, and the more we screamed about it, the less people cared to do anything about it. You know, and to this day, it is still amazing to me that there's a statute of limitation in the United States on torture, but there's not a statute dealing with arson and other things of this nature here. So they should not be able to hide behind any kind of alleged statute. Wrong is wrong, right is right. What these despicable detectives did could never be justified in the United States upon any shape, form, or fashion.
Darrell Cannon, what happened after they took you to this isolated area and tortured you in these various ways? Where did they then bring you?
What, the torture site?
Yes. Where did they... You were held in this car. They tortured you in various ways. Then what happened?
Yes, ma'am. From there, they took me back to the police station. Before we went to the police station, they drove around again looking for another guy that they said participated in this. To me, it seemed like they wanted to keep me away from the police station all day. Keep in mind, they arrested me at 6:45 in the morning. Their shift was over with at 7 a.m. But yet and still, they didn't leave my presence until probably well after 3 o'clock that afternoon. Why was that necessary? I was already in custody. They had other detectives involved in the case anyway. It was just a thing where they had fun. They had fun torturing me, and they lost track of what time it was as a process of this. And like I said, to keep me away from the police station was did intentionally, because I'm pretty sure that they knew that my common law wife had called an attorney. An attorney probably had came down to the police station looking for me. But until they were finished doing what they wanted to do with me, they didn't want any interference.
Now, did you tell your attorney what had happened then?
I agreed to everything they said. You know, in fact, they had already told me that they didn't deem me as a perpetrator, but they felt that I knew who the perpetrator was, and I kept telling them I didn't. As a result from having been tortured in the manner in which I was, and them feeding me various information, it got to the point where I started speaking back to them what they had already spoke to me. And as a result of that, that evening, a state's attorney came in along with the detectives that was involved in my torture and spoke to me about the alleged crime. And afterwards, I